I can say, as the saying goes, we were not born yesterday. However, what's our vision? And that's really what I want everyone to start focusing on. We are a society, sometimes I joke when I get frustrated, that we always چی میگن؟ زنده کش و مرده پرست هستیم. Which in English means we kill the living and we worship the dead. We cannot always look back. Yes, it's good to follow history and learn from it, of course. But without a vision, without a sense of what do we want to do, what have we learned, how can we build that into our collective learning curve and process, so that whatever we engineer for the future keeps in mind the problematic areas. What do we learn from that experience? How do we build in safeguards within the Constitution, within the structure of governance, all the watchdogs well beyond the structure of government that keeps society equipped with means to have recourse, whether it's in the justice system, free media, association, and what have you. All of this are the instruments that could make democratization possible. It's not just one aspect, but so many aspects. But most important of it all is a sense of civic responsibility. And I would like to close on this simple principle that is absolutely fundamental. You know what's my greatest fear about my country's future, our country's future? It's probably whether or not our country can remain intact if this status quo continues. There's been so much discrimination of various forms because people's ethnicities or religions that they could not possibly continue and accept to live in this same country we called Iran. We need to wake up and realize that unless we incentivize every single Iranian citizen, irrespective of their political ideology, religious belief, or ethnicity, to be absolutely equal citizens, men or women, young or old, Muslim or Jewish or Zoroastrian or atheist or straight or not straight, doesn't matter. Under the law, we have to bring in, not just on paper, not just because the Constitution says so, but in our heads and in our heart, that sense of commitment. So everyone's right is protected. Doesn't matter how much oil we have to sell in the future or how much gas reserves we have, we will still not achieve this dream of absolute freedom. But I believe that Iran is one of the few countries in that region that has the absolute potential to become that. Before the revolution, and if you look at the statistics and the way the country was going, most experts would tell you that we should have been by now, at the very least, a Taiwan or a South Korea, perhaps even a Japan, instead we have become North Korea. But it's not just enough to have the proper economic program. I think one of the reasons Iran was faced with a political crisis in the late 70s is because there was a disparity between economic development and political liberalization. There were not enough instances or focus on humanities or teaching every aspect of how do we equip ourselves as a society that sooner or later, as a result of education and modernization, will have more demands. And if you don't allow them that kind of participation that is obvious, what do you think people are going to go? So what do we do now? And let me give you a last example which is very interesting to me. And as you can imagine, all these years I've had so many discussions with Iranians from all points of view. And what I find very interesting, and I want you to really think about this because I think this is something that we need to focus on if we want to expedite the process of democratization in our country. For years and years, I see among Iranians the debate over the form of the regime that Iran could have in the future, as opposed to its content first. A lot of people believe in a system where ultimately it could be a parliamentary monarchy. A lot of people believe, no, it ought to be a republican system, which is perfectly fine as far as I'm concerned. I have no problem with one or the other, as long as the content is correct. But you know what's intriguing? When I talk to a monarchist or a Republican who happen to have the same political viewpoint, if they had to have a political agenda as a political party platform, there are some who are perhaps liberal Democrats, as opposed to others that may be social Democrats. And oddly enough, they continue bickering over their difference of opinion as to which system they believe more, as opposed to work together on the same common platform that represents their socio-political agenda. Imagine that we succeed in getting rid of this regime. Imagine we go through the whole process where a constituent assembly will come and draft a new constitution. There will be debate over the content, the law, the form, and yes, at the end of the day, Iranian people will be able to vote in a national referendum and ultimately ratify the proposed constitution and define the final form that the regime will take, and then we will have ultimately the first election of our first democratic secular majlis, as well as the first government that is chosen. And yes, this debate over which form it takes will finally be over. And my question then to you all is, what are you going to do the next day? Which political party is going to be present in the scene so we can conduct a debate, an election to form the next government? Have we thought about that? Or better yet, should we wait until then? Why not think of it now? Yes, this regime is cracking on our heads. Yes, it may not give us voice now, but it doesn't keep us from thinking of what we could have once we're ready to take that opportunity. We need to think of it now, not 10 years from now, or 5 years from now, or 20 years from now, whatever amount of time it may take. Now, why? Because the minute you can actually use your voice in a true, free atmosphere of free elections, you're given the opportunity but not the means. What's the point if you had the opportunity but still not have the means? So we need to equip ourselves as of now. And my challenge has been throughout these years not only to talk about the direction which the country could be taken and the methodology or the mechanism of change, but to also make all of us think, once we have it, what are we going to do with it? Let's not fall back in the situation, حزب نداریم چیکار کنیم? Or find the people who can talk about it. And yes, it's something that today can be easily communicated. I'm not saying that today you can go and assemble in Iran. Of course you can. You can even have a simple labor union, let alone a political party. But that doesn't mean we cannot think about it. That doesn't mean that we cannot draft the platforms for it. So if tomorrow, where there's a real debate over a variety of political parties that will name their candidates and have a true electoral process, whether we want to vote for people to be in the legislative side of things or eventually the formation of government, we go to work right now. And you know what? These are the kind of things that will give every Iranian, inside or outside, a sense that, you know what, the minute we get the chance, we are ready and prepared to take over. This is not just about freedom of election, which of course is key. It's well beyond that. Let's start thinking about that. Let's start thinking of every opportunity that we have to at least prepare ourselves. This is critical because you know what the question that I'm faced with a lot of times when I talk to leaders, heads of states, heads of governments, MPs and parliamentarians, they say, how do we know you're going to be able to manage the transition? How do we know it's not going to get worse? Oh, by the way, we've seen what happened here and we've seen what happened there. And we need ammunition to come back and say, wait a second. If you dig through the surface and understand what's going on in Iran and the evolution, then you will know that we are much more prepared than you will ever think of. But people, I cannot just say it in words. We have to be able to show it in practice. So really, this is something that I wanted to draw the attention of, especially my fellow compatriots. But this is not only our job. We can get a lot of help. We can get a lot of suggestions. We can have all sorts of entities that have done that day in, day out, who have a century's worth of experience much beyond us, and they're willing to help. We have to inoculate ourselves. We have to be prepared. Because I know this window will occur. And shame on us if we don't maximize our capabilities to take advantage of that situation. The world is not going to wait. Our society cannot tolerate more of this. We really have to be the voices of not just change, but be able to explain how we're going to achieve it and what and how society will benefit from it.